on some of the political reaction coming through then with regards to President Cyril Ramaphosa's reconstructive and economic plan. Let's bring it back here now to Johannesburg then. We're joined right here in studio by Thandeka Qobulembeki, SABC Economic News Editor as well, joining us here. Thandeka, thank you so much for the time. Did that offer anything of substance, anything new? Did we get something that would actually reconstruct and recover South Africa's economy?
Well, that remains to be seen, and how vigorously they will pursue the issue of implementation. So there's a certain renewed vigor with which he places emphasis on those 4 or 5 main elements of the economic recovery plan. But unfortunately, I get a sense of old wine in new bottles. And I get a sense that there is still a marriage, a refusal to break out of the prism of old, failed macroeconomic policy frameworks.
Why are we struggling to do that, though? I mean, we've discussed insanity as being, doing the same thing over and over and expecting a different result. We're pretty much doing the same thing here and expecting South Africa to move in a particular direction, and yet we haven't been for the last 20-odd years.
Characterizing the road to the issuing and the launch of this economic recovery plan has been a major schism and a debate between those who in NEDLEC proposed a macroeconomic framework or a macroeconomic path that is Keynesian, that introduces the idea that we need to stimulate demand in the economy by spending further, and opposing them in NEDLEC and in government, particularly from Treasury, have those who've said we must pursue the route of austerity even in a crisis and maintain the fiscal framework that we already
He's tried to put a little bit of measure of both in here, hasn't he, though? I mean, he said he wants a massive rollout of infrastructure across the country. Then there's the rapid expansion of energy capacity as well, which actually means that you're going to cut how much you have reliance from Eskom and the like as well, actually. Then you want to increase the amount for employment stimulus, and then a growth to drive industrial growth in the country. Has he gone now the way of saying, let's perhaps try to spend a little bit more out of this trouble?
Well, it's fancy footwork, because while he's conscious of the debt trajectory of our country, he's also very conscious of the dire social needs and the abject poverty and the growing joblessness. So that was fancy footwork, and he is walking a tightrope. And he's also trying to reconcile the different social and economic partners who have gathered in NEDLEC. But whether it's a good job and whether it's doable or not remains to be seen. But a lot of it lies in the sense of urgency and in the quality of the implementation to fix those things that we can fix, and then to continue to debate and fight over those things that remain unresolved, in the hope that somehow we can find national consensus and a way forward collectively.
One thing he certainly did do towards the end is try to create that sense of urgency for us to actually do this. But our track record on implementation just doesn't stand us in good stead. And I can imagine that the ratings agencies will look at this and say, well, we'll just wait for you to implement it before we actually make a move. Do you get a sense that the political drive, though, now is there? Is there a real sense of urgency, as he spoke about towards the end?
Well, as a citizen, I am optimistic, but as a journalist, I take seriously the obligation to this democracy to hold their feet to the fire on all the commitments that they have made to the South African people today, and to rigorously explore every single angle and aspect of this and hold power to account on the plan on the table. Because even if 10% of this plan is implemented, it is moving forward. But I am concerned about this inability to think beyond the current straitjackets ideologically.
Yeah, it definitely gets difficult. And as you said, the proof of the pudding is in the eating. And the eating is going to be very difficult in a time when coronavirus has certainly put us...
Do you think we've got our work cut out for us?
Look, one thing's for sure is that we're not going to help ourselves move forward by doing the same things we've continuously done, which is almost nothing in my point of view. I think there's going to be a whole lot of hard grafting from here on in if we actually really want to see growth levels in this country. We continue to speak about schools, infrastructure, sanitation, housing, water. My big question, again, I started off with it by asking, what was RDP, the RDP thing about if we're still talking about housing infrastructure? You know, we failed so many years ago already on certain issues. How are we now moving forward from them?
Most encouragingly, he did also speak about, beyond the social issues, working a way forward for the SOE sector so that the SOEs cease to be a drag on the fiscus.
Yeah.
And it's enlightening that he's beginning to speak of the Chinese model that he referred to or alluded to in his speech, where you separate the public mandate side of the SOEs from the commercial side. You allow the commercial side to pursue public listings as a way of raising the liquidity and raising capital for those entities that are then freed up to behave like private companies. And he even seemed to suggest that the future of South African SOEs could be like that of China.
Sure.
And you know that China's SOEs, which are mega SOEs, and many of them industrial SOEs, are in the global top 500 companies. Yeah. And if we just pursue that trajectory alone, we're on a winning ticket.
Oh, we certainly can hope. And as you said, as a citizen, we do need to remain hopeful at the very least. Thandeka Qubulembeki, SABC News Economics editor, then joining us as we unpack just a little bit more when it comes to the president's address there for South Africa's reconstruction and economic